So after waking up from a nightmare and not being able to fall back to sleep yet, I mean, maybe it may just be one of those days where I get to a certain point and have to doze off for a while. I wanted to talk about vicarious trauma and direct trauma, and yeah. So where do I start? I woke up and as I was writing, something that went through my mind is just how many people I know who could be even more directly affected by this deportation shit. And I mean, it has to come to an end. And why is it hard to put it to an end? It should not be hard to put it to an end. Really massive wrong is being done. And, so here I could talk about vicarious trauma, I think. I wonder about people not being aware of what is going on. And I wonder how in the hell a person can be unaware. But everyone has different life experiences. A person could say, this is a big country. A person might have sort of peripheral awareness, but not as direct awareness of it. So, I don't think a person should be blamed for not knowing, for not being as aware, but I do wonder that how can people not know. So that's a hard thing for me. And but I think about, but here, so I want to talk about vicarious trauma. When a person is not as directly affected, doesn't have loved ones, family members, co-workers, things, p- closer sort of human, you know, interaction with people who have been affected, are being affected, could be affected. I think, isn't everyone being affected? But then again, I could say it's a big country and people have different life experience and all that. Um, but vicarious trauma, I think about someone being aware that is going on, but what they do day to day is not directly involved with that. So, and the trauma from that, knowing, because that is going to affect a person's conscience. If a person has a conscience about other people, I like to think most people do. I mean, do most people. But, I'm thinking about this. So, vicarious trauma, knowing that's going on. A person, I don't tend to use this. I have teased someone about using this phrase, but moral injury, could a person have moral injury from that going on, knowing it's going on, and not being able to stop it? I mean, I think there are different sources of vicarious trauma. I mean, that is that not trauma? Some kind of trauma. And again, could a person say moral trauma? And I don't tend to use the word moral. I just don't like some of its connotations or and uses and stuff like that. But vicarious trauma, I think, well, here is where I just feel like I'm almost running out of anything to say. I think about direct trauma compounded by vicarious trauma, and I think about people just going through the motions of their day to day and some things being normal or seeming normal. And here's something that is coming into my mind, before I came in here to start talking. I am so nightmare chills. What is it about? I looked at news for the place that a place I associate with in my mind for that, and where I thought, has something happened? Let me see, and there was something that, do I want to say it caught my attention? I mean, I could say it's some of the same old, and a person a little bit younger than me in a position of, yeah, doing massive harm. And maybe, I don't know, it is hard for me to imagine anyone trying to sanitize, trying, I don't want to use that word, trying to excuse, trying to, um, I mean, I will say, I don't understand how someone with undergraduate degrees in economics and physics can do so much harm. And that is an unoriginal person, not an original person. As far as his ideas and things like that, that is someone with, I mean, really lacking conscience. But there was something about, I'm like, what is that? And it's the usual. If that's the name that he came up with, that's the usual mind fuck shit. All right, so that's the usual mind fuck. And what is gonna put an end to that? So but what I was feeling before I came in here and sat down is like, it's like early PTSD. So what I felt was like, this is like early trauma, and I feel traumatized by that person. And I think about when people have, when you're a survivor of interpersonal trauma that is real extreme, physical and whatnot, you know, I mean, if a person has been through that, I don't even know how to talk about it. But when we have experienced that far in the past, maybe we kind of know, all right, that's what I'm experiencing right now. What what are other people experiencing who haven't experienced that, if they're experiencing anything at all having to do with that? So it's a feeling of something beyond invaded. How about that? And an invasion of your person. And when you think about the theft of personal information and all of that, of course. I mean, and I don't think that is the wheels going in my mind thinking about it. I think that is actually, yeah, this is what it felt like, real early trauma after being raped, all right? And now I am feeling that having to do with that person that has harmed so many people in this country, and yeah, other countries do I need to talk about? I will talk about this country. But yeah, I mean, certainly, I mean, if anyone ever tries to make him out to be some kind of hero, I mean, that can't happen. I think about things going on internationally, and what if people were to say, "Oh, well, he did this," and it's like, well, he took advantage here, manipulated this, and well, that's just someone working some things that they really need to stop trying to work. But yeah, so direct trauma, vicarious trauma, you know, knowing things are going on. One of the things that came to mind is, for an example, people being aware there's an abusive relationship, but not being able to do anything. And that, I think it can kind of be compared, what is going on, I think, can be compared to that some, domestic violence. I mean, it's people living in a place being harmed so badly for existing because of not having a document. All right, so that, I think, you know, that harm, that continuing violence, I think it is not different from domestic violence, in in plenty of ways. And I think about people who, again, might be aware but might not be able to do anything. All right, that it is hard to, I think, hard to intervene when that's going on. And but it's also why, what happens. I mean, I think there's a feeling of helplessness if it's adults. I mean, it's just, that's just hard. If it's children, what, I mean, being harmed, and what if it's worse if they're, it's just like, yeah. So vicarious trauma, being aware there are things going on, and had, does some of that trauma occur in that period of time that where a person can't do anything? where a person is trying to see, what can I do? I wonder about that. If some of that happens there, all right, I'm aware there is something going on that is very, very wrong. But what do I do? And this might be just a little bit of time. This might be a lot of time, and maybe it kind of fluctuates because maybe sometimes a person actually is able to do things, but not, I mean, for me, it feels like, I mean, I'm gonna say it's just a real bad feeling. A real bad feeling. I think about what could have been prevented, what's historical, what's just continuing and going on again and again, and yeah. So, but vicarious trauma, a person that might not have had any real interaction with this thing going on and being aware of it, and so a person might use the word bystander, but I don't know if that is correct, and I don't know ways that that's used exactly, but yeah, I'm just thinking about people in a place with a whole lot of things going on, and people being aware, and they're suffering from that. I mean, I think that hurts the emotional heart, the conscience, and what do people do? So is that vicarious trauma, and then, or is that direct? I mean, I think about, I kind of wanted to compare the two, vicarious trauma, direct trauma. I think a lot of times people experience both. Um, and why am I talking about it? Well, again, I woke up from a nightmare with chills, haven't been able to fall back to sleep. Um, look to see, what is there anything that happened today, that's or happened, in the place that's really coming to mind in connection with that nightmare. And then, yeah, thinking about people who are good people and where there might be awareness, but yeah, I mean, it's a nightmare. How do we stop it? I mean, we have to, and I know that we can. And, I mean, there are some things that aren't safe to do, and I guess everyone is a little bit different as far as what's safe, what's a safe thing to do. And, I mean, I just think about how absurd it is when people believe in a republic. I mean, you know, people do it without even thinking about it. Democrats, Republicans. Democrats are Republicans. I mean, and I am. I'm going to go off on a little bit of political. We What we do is survive a republic. A republic is a thing that is, you know, taken over, tried to take over a place. And there's machinery that in some ways can be pragmatic, but also can be extremely, extremely harmful. And it's a matter of surviving a republic and helping people survive a republic. I mean, maybe there are places with that word where it's not a terrible thing, but I'm not aware. I'm not aware of any republic where terrible things have happened. So yeah, anyway, yeah, well, and again, that slightly younger man comes to mind that thinks he can do anything at all, and I guess he thinks he's clever. He thinks that I mean, and I can imagine people buying into it because it's hard not to, and then being harmed so fucking badly. I'm not going to use the word that I want to use to describe him, but I think it's accurate. I think that's why his family left Canada and went to South Africa. So yeah, how do we stop that too? That's real important. Again, no original ideas. He is only using what people have done, and the I mean, it's something beyond sexual harassment. The company, that company God damn, man. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I hope everyone is doing well enough. And yeah, happy Wednesday.